From plane of light to plane, wings dipping through geometries and orchids that sunset builds. Out of the peak's black angularity of shadow, riding the last tumulus avalanche of light above pines and the gultural gorge, the hawk comes. His wing scythes down on another day. His motion is that of the honed steel edge. We hear the crashless fall of the stalks of time. The head of each stalk is heavy with the gold of our error. Look, look! He is climbing the last light, who knows neither time nor error, and under whose eye, unforgiving, the world unforgiven swings into shadow. Long now, the last thrush is still, the last bat now cruises in his sharp hieroglyphics. His wisdom is ancient too and immense. The star is steady like Plato over the mountain. If there were no wind, we might, we think, hear the earth grind on its axis, or history drip in the darkness like a leaking pipe in the cellar. Okay, so for our poem we did soapstone, and so for the speaker, most of the time the speaker is speaking in third person, so he'll mostly refer to it as his, but then occasionally it'll shift to first person. For example, it says we here and it says our error. So when it shifts to first person, it makes it more personal, and by doing this it makes the feeling of death more inevitable. And then the person speaking is also not a part of the setting, but looking upon the person in the poem and watching their actions. And then the occasion for this poem is death, and we can tell this through the symbol of the hawk and the diction used throughout the poem. And then so the audience is, we can tell that the audience is another human because, like I said earlier, it says we, and it says our, and by saying our error, it's referring to human error. So that's how we can analyze who the audience is. And then the purpose of this poem is to illustrate death using imagery and depict the inevitability of death. So we can tell that it illustrates death using imagery by referring to the hawk and by describing the scenery with vivid detail. And then the tone of this poem is solemn, it's dark. We know this through descriptive adjectives, so words like unforgiving, shadow, and lost let us know the tone of the poem.
Look at the title. So a hawk, that is a predatory bird, and it's seen as a death omen to many cultures. So the whole first stanza is it's anchoring the setting of the hawk. So it says, from plane of light to plane, wings dipping through geometries and orchids that the sunset builds. So we know that it's sunset, which means that it's getting dark. It was light, but it's getting dark. So this may be the moments leading up to someone's death. It's getting dark. The peak's black angularity of shadow. So black is obviously a dark color, and shadow is a very ominous word. So, and it's angularity. So the last tumultuous avalanche of light above pines and guttural gorge, the hawk comes. So he built an imagery of wings dipping through. It's the hawk. The sunset's building. It's getting darker. The last tumultuous avalanche. There's shadow. It's shadowy. The light's still above the pines though, and the hawk comes. So when I read So that just sets the setting and the imagery up. And when I read The Hawk Comes, I think about Game of Thrones and like winter is coming. Like it's just the inevitability of this hawk coming. 'Cause when I connect it to Game of Thrones for some reason, it's like you know that it's coming, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. And then it says, his wings sides down on another day. His motion is that of the honed steel edge. We hear the crashless fall of stalks of times. So a scythe, I looked it up, and it's a cutting tool for grass, and it's closely associated with the Grim Reaper.
Just keep going.
Rachel just dropped something. So it's closely associated with the Grim Reaper. And his wing sights down on another day. So that turns his wing into a weapon. It's cutting through another day. It talks about the honed steel edge. And I drew a picture of it. It's the Grim Reaper's little dress. He's holding it and he's looking all scary, frowny face. But that's it. And it says we hear the crashless fall of the stalks of time. So time is capitalized, and it's capitalized down here too. So that establishes it as a really important word. And it's talking about how his wing is a weapon, and it's cutting down on another day. It's got a honed steel edge, the crashless fall of the stalks of time. So he's cutting down the stalks of time because you can hear their crashless fall. And then it says the head of each stalk is heavy with the gold of our error. And the imagery that's being set up here is when he sights down on the stalk, the head of it is gold with our error, and that kind of makes the gold and the stalk and the scythe, that kind of makes me think of corn, and maybe like how each human is a crop and he's just cutting it down. Then it says, look, he is climbing the last light. So the narrator can see this coming too, because he's saying, look, he's climbing the last light, who knows neither time nor error, and under whose eye unforgiving, the world unforgiven swings into shadow. So that sets an ominous mood. It's making death feel like it's closer. Whose eye unforgiving, and that kind of brings in some Judgment Day feelings, and the world is unforgiven. It swings into shadow. Shadow isn't really a place that you like want to be. And it's the last light, so that could be like the final hour before you swing into shadow. And then it says, long now, the last thrush is still the last bat. Now cruises in his sharp hieroglyphics. His wisdom is ancient too and immense. The stars steady like Plato over the mountain. So wisdom is associated with old age, like the old wise guy in the movie. And something that's ancient and immense. And then it talks about hieroglyphics. Those are ancient inscriptions, and he studied like Plato, who's a Greek philosopher from 427 to 347-ish BC. So this sets up a tone that this has been around for a while, the hawk, which we know now is a death omen. And then it says, if there were no wind, we think, hear the earth grind on its axis, or history drip in the darkness like a leaking pipe in the cellar. So like a leaking pipe in the cellar is a simile that kind of brings you back to more modern times with pipes and cellars. And it's dark in cellars, and it's kind of scary. They're all underground. And then it says, if there were no wind, we might think that we hear the earth grind on its axis. So when he adds the we think in between the commas, it kind of brings back to that human feeling, like human error and mental errors and all of that. So yeah, it's just, the whole thing is just illustrating the death omen and the inevitability of it.